Welcome data nerds in the most awaited session of the lookup series. In my past two sessions, we studied about VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. We understood their syntaxes, how the data should be arranged to use those formula, and what are the limitations. We also understood what are the places, what are the conditions where these formula do not work perfectly. And in short, we also discussed about the alternative. And what was that alternative? It was XLOOKUP. But in this video, we are actually not going to understand the syntax and we are not going to write the formula. But I want to dedicate this session to understand the limitations that we talked in bits and pieces in the previous videos. I want to tell you all the limitations in detail that VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP have and how XLOOKUP solves it single-handedly. So this video is more or less VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP versus XLOOKUP. Now, why I decided to have these sessions? Because in interviews, these questions become very frequent. These questions are asked very frequently. An interviewer will expect you to have a clear concept about the limitations and not just by-hearted articulations. The interviewer will expect you to explain the limitations, when these formula don't work properly and what was the need of XLOOKUP, when do we use XLOOKUP, how does XLOOKUP is more useful than VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. So these kinds of concepts should not be by-hearted. It should be understood. So in this session, we'll understand it theoretically. I'm not going to actually write any formula. So basically, we are drawing the comparison between VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP and XLOOKUP. So let's get the comparison started. So first, we'll see the limitation of VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, and then we'll see how XLOOKUP solves it seamlessly. So first things first, with VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, direction of lookup is restricted. With VLOOKUP, you can search from left to right, and with HLOOKUP, you can search from top to bottom. But that problem gets completely resolved by XLOOKUP because it can search in any direction, left, right, up or down. Which brings me to my second point. With VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, while writing the formula, in the third argument, which is index, you must manually count which column number to return and enter. Again, that problem as well is taken care of by XLOOKUP because it does not ask you to count the index manually, but it directly references the return range. So no need to count the column numbers. Now comes the third point. With VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, if no match is found, then by default, formula will throw an error unless you use any extra function like ifError to handle that error. But XLOOKUP has a built-in argument on the fourth number called missing value. So you can directly write the message you want to show in case if the match is not found. Then comes the fourth point. With VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, you cannot return multiple columns or multiple rows. It allows only one value per lookup. But that is not the case with XLOOKUP. Because with XLOOKUP, you can return multiple columns or rows at once. The limitations of VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP do not only end on their functionalities, but it also lacks efficiency. Let's understand how. With VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, if you have a larger data set, and if you have used these formula repeatedly across thousands of rows, the spreadsheet tends to go slower and the efficiency is compromised. But XLOOKUP uses dynamic array and vectorized logic. Hence, XLOOKUP works generally faster and it is more efficient. Which brings me to my last and very interesting point. With VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, if you make any structural changes in the data set, for example, if you insert or delete any column or rows, the formula will break. Since XLOOKUP works on taking references on ranges and not on fixed column numbers, so even if you make any changes, it remains stable as long as you have not messed up with the reference columns. So this was a theoretical teaser of how VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP differ from XLOOKUP. So I want you to go through each point very carefully because you have understood HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP. I want you to relate with what we have studied with these limitations. Then you'll have a better understanding when we actually start writing the formula of XLOOKUP. These sessions are very important because these questions are frequently asked in interview and I do not want you to mess up there. So understand these concepts, practice more and be prepared for the XLOOKUP session. Till then, study hard and bye-bye.